So I've been conducting some tests trying to figure out what makes good leather for standard secondary valves, and I wanted to start here to show that what I'm using is 5.5 inches of water vacuum. That's what the gauge shows right there. It's right at 5.5 inches. And there's 5 is right there, and 5.5 is right there. So 5.5 inches of vacuum is what I'm using to run my tests. And I've got this hooked up. I've got this hooked up to a bubble jar and a test jig. Let me zoom in here a little bit. So you can see what I'm going to be doing here a little better. Okay. And I've got a test block right here with a standard valve facing on it. And I'll hook that up to that. And you see that when I close that off, once it finishes, I can get my hand is not making a good seal here. There we go. And once it finishes sucking the air out of the tube, you can see that it makes a virtually perfect seal with no bubbles. Okay. So, this material right here was recommended by a nationally known rebuilder who's been working in the industry for 50 years. And you can see that that's got a little bit of bubbles on it. I'll put a little bit of weight on it. See that even under a little bit of pressure, it's still making some bubbles. If I put a lot of pressure on it, and I'm putting a fair amount of pressure on this now, you can see that it almost stops. This is a standard type of leather that's typically uses the valve leather. High quality valve leather is what's usually used. I'll put that on there. You can see the bubbles. Add a little bit of weight. Still see quite a bit of bubbles. I'll add a lot more weight. And you can still see we got a lot of bubbles. I mean, not as many, but still got constant bubbles. Some people recommend cabretta leather, which I would never recommend because you can see the skin. And you can see that that's pretty worthless. Even with a lot of pressure, you still got a lot of leakage. And here's another type. Now, some people say, well, why not use the fuzzy side? Aren't you supposed to use the fuzzy side for valves? Well, let's use the fuzzy side. This is the fuzzy side. And you can see that with the fuzzy side, even with a lot of pressure, you still got a lot of leakage. You got another one that's thinner, has a little less skin texture to it. We got a lot of bubbles. And we'll apply a lot of pressure. And you can see it's significantly less. I got a lot of pressure on this. Significantly less bubbles. It's still bubbling. And then we have this new stuff that I actually kind of found by accident. And I decided to go ahead and give it a try. And you can see that without any pressure at all, you see the amount of bubbles that's there. And let's go ahead and compare that again to this new material, this synthetic material. And I'll let you be the judge as to which one makes less bubbles without any pressure. Pretty close. We'll add a little bit of pressure to this. Whoa, look at that. Virtually stopped. Now I'm not using that much pressure. In fact, I'm not using any pressure on it at all right now, and you can see the bubble rate. And I'll put this back on there. And put the weight on it. And you can see the bubble rate. It's pretty clearly obvious that this candidate right here, get it on the center here. And what's interesting is the way that it feels, okay? I mean, you can't feel this, but I can feel this I can feel the seal. In other words, as I'm trying to move this leather around, as I'm trying to move this, I'm trying to keep my fingers out of the way. As I'm moving the leather around on this on the plate, I can feel the grab of the leather, man, and it's holding on there pretty good. Whereas with this one right here, it actually doesn't slide. It kind of skips along because it's a synthetic material against the metal, and it kind of has a stickiness. It's not sticky, but it has a but you can see I hope you can see the bubble rate. I hope my camera is correctly adjusted here. Yeah, I think you can see that pretty well. If I could zoom in a little bit more. You can see the difference in the bubble rates between this one and this one. You can see that this one's significantly less without any weight at all at 5 inches. So I went ahead and made up a valve, and I've made up this is a standard valve, normal configuration, nothing fancy. And I'll put it on there. Oh, come on, get on there. You can see that at 5 inches, that valve has virtually no leakage. I mean, this, if you've worked with valves at all, you know that this amount of leakage at 5 inches is significant, is almost negligible. And what's interesting is that as you turn it up, as you turn the vacuum up to higher levels, the leakage doesn't increase. Now you would think that at a higher vacuum level, if it's going to leak, a higher vacuum level would cause it to leak even more. But that's not the case. Matter of fact, we'll take this and we'll put that at the higher vacuum level. And this is without being attached to a valve. In other words, you've got the valve, you've got the stem going, you've got the stem going right through the middle of the valve. So there's a hole in the valve that the stem is going in, so, which is a possible point for a leak. And we'll go ahead. This has no hole in it. It's not connected to anything. So obviously there's less chance for a leak in this material than there would be in the other material. I'll actually go ahead and apply some pressure to it, and we get a significant amount of pressure to it. I'm putting a lot of pressure on it, and we can finally get the leakage down to the point where it's pretty minimal, and yet we take that same higher pressure with the new material in a real-time configuration. And you can see that the leakage level is almost nothing. So what is this magic material? Well, I'm not going to tell you. But it's been around for a long time. And I think that this is actually the material that Standard used to make their secondary valves. Okay, I'll tell you. It's actually flat valve leather. That's what this is. It's actually just regular old flat valve leather that's been split down to 40 thousandths of an inch. And it's real smooth. And I tell you what, it makes a great seal.